Hockey heaven, we're there. Isobel Cup, Women's Frozen Four, Gopher Men's Big Ten champs, and high school hockey all on the horizon. Plus, we catch up with prospect and official beauty Calen Addison, while also checking in on the Wild and its fan base. All of that and more in episode 65, presented by SotaStick.
Bardown Beauties jerseys are back, as are a number of other amazing designs found exclusively at SotaStick.com. Newly released 1980 scoreboard t-shirts and restocked North Star State logos. Toss down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all items at SotaStick.com. Hello, everybody. We're back, episode 65 of Bardown Beauties. What's going on? How are we feeling? Fred, Alexis, how you doing?
Good so far. We got, I love looking at the rundown and seeing like a plethora of hockey topics to go over because like we've said so many times, there's been so many weeks and so many months where there's been like nothing to talk about. So anytime we have a lot to talk about in an episode, I'm happy, which we have today.
It's too much. And I'm sure Fred feels the opposite way. He's like, oh, you girls better keep it short, keep it curt, right?
No, I decided to go into mustache week. That's all I wanted to do.
Mustache week.
True. I think that
like Shark Week.
Yeah. I think it's a nod to Calen Addison, our guest for this week.
Segue.
You like that segue? That's what I do.
Good.
Making those connections, Doc Emmerich style here.
Yeah,
making
Fred teed that one up for you.
Baby.
You hit it right off. Yeah.
So stick around. Calen Addison will be joining us to check in on how things are going in Iowa, how it went up here. He got a haircut. Spoiler alert.
He did.
So be sure if you're watching it on YouTube.
Not a stash cut, though. Just
Not
a
head
stash
haircut.
cut.
That's true. The caterpillar on his lip is still living
there.
strong. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Also, Alexis, you said there's lots going on. Let's start with the NWHL Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they had the bubble that they weren't able to complete everything in the time that they had wanted, but the championship so far coming up this weekend as we're recording on Friday looks to be all set to go. And how are things going to operate there?
Yeah, I'm just excited, first of all, that they got a chance to finish the season out before it got too extended. I mean, last season, the season got cut short right before the championship game. They never got a chance to play it, and that was my biggest fear this time around, was that the same thing was going to happen. So I'm just excited that they found a way to get this going. It's just going to be, a couple games. They just got to finish out the playoffs here, and the Whitecaps, our Minnesota Whitecaps, have a chance to claim a back-to-back title, I suppose you could say.
I mean, that still counts, right?
They're defending champs.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's on NBCSN. They announced actually the crew today. It's Kate Scott, AJ, and then Chelios as the I think sideline reporter, iSide reporter, or in-studio host, or whatever they labeled her as. So all-female crew doing that, which is going to be so fun to see. And yeah, just excited that they're going to get to finish out the season and that we get a chance to watch our Whitecaps win another Isobel Cup.
Obviously not a whole lot about it, but Danny Ryland stepped down this week. What do you know about that? Does the timing seem odd at all? Or is it kind of like, oh, she just decided she's, kind of handing the reins over to the next brass and some new fresh faces might help it? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that the NWHL, it appears, is kind of doing a makeover in a way, and not anything against the people who helped found this league. I mean, she was part of that initial group of people that brought the NWHL to life. But even like on the media end of things, of the PR people, they're in a transition of new people coming in there. So I think it's kind of, they're moving into this next stage, and the people who brought it in initially have gotten it to where they want it to go, and now they're going to hand it off to other people to continue to carry it. So I don't think that I think this was something that's probably coming, and although I do wonder with the fact that the season is not done yet, if why maybe it wasn't waited until the end of the season to announce it. But who knows what's going on behind the scenes there. I just think that they are kind of moving into a new phase of people running the NWHL, not for any particular reason, but just because the people who started it have maybe outgrown their role there and want to hand it off to somebody else. And that's just kind of what it seems like to me.
Sure. And again, stick tap to Danny Ryland for creating the league and doing everything that she had done kind of to bringing women's hockey and professional hockey into a new light. So congratulations to her. Wish her all the best in her next endeavors and best of luck to the next person that takes control. Sticking with our women's hockey theme, Women's Frozen Four kicked off on Thursday. No Golden Gopher women's hockey, which is still so freaking weird to me, like how dominant they are, and for them to miss. Of course, everyone can go into the points and the favoritism and who's the selection committee. End of the day, they didn't make it. And, it is what it is. University of Minnesota Duluth, however, did make it, but their run is done as well. Wah, wah. So we maybe have to cheer for like the Badgers, right?
No, I'm cheering for Northwestern. Forget about it. No,
right.
the Bulldogs lose in dramatic fashion, and so the Badgers will play for a chance to win another title there, and so it should be a good one. I'm not rooting for the Badgers though. I can't. It goes against everything I believe in. So
better dead than red,
Badgers
baby.
Fans. That's right.
I mean, how's this? Ready for my next segue?
Let's hear it.
University of Minnesota Gopher men's team.
There we go.
Defeating.
Wow. Fred's got to be happy. We're just rolling right through these topics. Come on,
let's go.
I love it.
Yes. Better dead than red. Like I said, they had a commanding lead over Wisconsin. Let Wisconsin come back in, but then shut the door and said nay to claim the Big Ten championship, which was pretty awesome to see. Nay. They said
nay as a horse.
Wisconsin. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You love to see it. I mean, I was obviously covering the Wild game, but catching the score on there was very exciting. You'd love to see them win the Big Ten championship against whoever. And they had a tough road to go through to get there too. So definitely exciting. That'll help them out with the seeding come Selection Sunday for the men's tournament.
Yeah, that was a fun game. And that night, as you mentioned, you were covering the Wild. I was watching the Wild. So I had the Wild versus Yotes game on. We were switching between that and the Gopher Badger game. And then my Huskies were playing the Fighting Hawks, which they were unfortunately the odd man out that night, the only team that I was rooting for that did pick up a win. They all, both the Gophers and the Huskies games were kind of dramatic, and the Husky game was pretty close. And then the Fighting Hawks pulled ahead in the third, and the Huskies lost by a goal, just couldn't find a way to put one more in the back of the net to send it to OT. So happy that the Gophers got a win, happy that the Wild got a win. Unfortunately, the Huskies didn't, but I guess that's what I get for rooting for both the Huskies and the Gophers, because it's basically a crime. Yeah, so I guess I can only have one or the other.
Right, exactly. And I'll bring you to the Gopher side at some point.
Hey, I grew up a Gopher fan. I had to put that aside when I was at St. Cloud, because literally they will burn you at the stake for that. And then as soon as I graduated, I was like, okay, now I'm rooting a little bit more for the Gophers again. So we're back on the Gopher bandwagon.
And then again, sticking with the college hockey theme, Matt Boldy named a Hobie Baker finalist. We love to see that as a Minnesota Wild prospect. I know we talked last week in our Q's with the Beauties a little bit about, do we see Boldy coming here? Because actually, surprisingly, BC lost in their Hockey East, which I think was nobody expected, and it certainly doesn't hurt. They're still going to get selected. They're still going to get a good seeding coming up in the men's tournament, but shocker alert, huge upset, because that BC squad is stacked. Gideon Nesterenko, also a Minnesota Wild prospect, out there doing some big things as well. All in all, very exciting for Boldy to get this nod. Do you think he can do it?
Think he's got a chance. It's going to be tough to beat out somebody like Cole Caulfield, who obviously has put up good stats. But I will say this: if you take a look at kind of the top stats and just look at where Boldy ranks there, he doesn't have the most points, in college hockey and all of that, but for his area, he's got the most points and the fewest amount of games played, which I think there's something to be said about that. He's also netted a handful of shorthanded goals, and I think he's just a really important part of his team. And so I think that he's got some things going for him. I don't know if he's going to win it. I hope so. That would be awesome. But looking at some of the guys he's competing against, it might be a bit of a tough one for him, but definitely rooting for him.
Do you want to make a bet on it?
Let's make a bet.
You want to make a bet?
It's been a while since we made a bet.
Do it. I bet he gets at least into the top 3. He's a top 3 finalist.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I got to go against you then if we're making a bet. I think that there's a chance that it's 50-50 for me, whether he gets in the top 3 or wins or whether he's out. So I think that's announced in a week and a half. They announced. I know the winners announced April 9th. So yeah, we'll see. Let's make a bet. What are we betting on?
Well, we can use, ready for this, the BettorEdge app, which is now is a new thing that is joining the podcast here. We're so grateful, so very thankful for them to be on board with our growing podcast. BettorEdge allows you to combine your love for competition, social, and sports. It's a sports betting exchange that actually gives back to its bettors. BettorEdge is a brand new locally based betting platform meant to connect users and attempt to add some coin into your bank. Completely legal and 100% fun. Compete against your friends like Alexis and I are going to do. Fred, if you want in, we can loop you in somehow, maybe, talk about it.
I'm a bad gambler. You don't want me to gamble.
Yeah, you don't stand a chance against
My
me,
wife doesn't want me to
Jessica.
gamble. I just lose it all.
I know. You can also bet against Sports Insiders. I will be doing one down the road for NHL, so you can bet against me and my Pierce Predicts. Maybe we'll get Pickle Predicts in there. Who knows? But all in all, BettorEdge is an awesome new app that you guys have to for sure check out. Certainly use code BEAUTS, BEAUTS, and you'll receive a free $10 when you sign up by visiting BettorEdge, BETTOR edge.com. That's BettorEdge, BETTOREDGE.com. So shout out to them.
Killing it. Yes.
I know. I only had to glance once over to see what was up with
Nailed
that.
it.
So yeah. So definitely we'll get the bet going on there.
Yeah,
Have
let's
folks,
do it.
Check in. Go Matt Boldy. Please don't let me down.
I'm rooting for him too, but for the sake of the bet, we got to see if he makes the
That's
top
what you
three
got to
or not.
do.
That's what you gotta do.
We had talked about our predictions lately. Alexa's bringing some heat, some fire with the pickle predicts, looking phenomenal. Pierce predicts didn't look so fabulous when the Colorado Avalanche put up 50 freaking shots on net against poor Cam Talbot. 45 of them in the first 2 periods. My God.
Let me tell you this, though. And I was going to text you this last night, but I was like, you know what? I'll save it for the podcast. Pickle Predicts failed epically the first time we introduced it. So you're on pace to have success the second or third time around.
I mean, I might be putting clown makeup on during like the breakdown. Like you'll just see me just clowning out.
Yeah, it's
like,
okay. You balled out, you gave it everything you got, and if you fail this time around, what are the odds,
54.
right? I mean, that's
to be fair. No, Cam Talbot made 50 saves.
Yeah.
Or 54 shot. Like unreal. Like I couldn't believe full discretion, went to bed before the third period. I kept having dreams that the Avalanche let Minnesota come back though. Like I was going to wake up in the morning and see that the Wild won 6-5. And I was
thinking
yeah, baby.
In the third period, I'm like, how crazy of a game would this be if the Wild somehow found a way to come back and tie this? Like, I don't anticipate this happening, but that would make for a pretty exciting storyline just with the way that the Avs dominated in that game. But it was one of the first games this season that I can recall where the Wild just did not look like they were in it. And I've said this throughout the season where, it seems like the Wild are in every game, whether, they're dominating, whether they're, trying to crawl back from a deficit. Even they've gotten shut out a game or two. It seems like they've been in every game. This first game against the Avalanche, remember we record this on a Friday. Who knows what the heck is in store for us on Saturday. But that game on Thursday, they did not look like the Minnesota Wild that we've seen. And you're going to have, games where you're not going to win. Your legs aren't going to be there. It doesn't matter how good of a team you are. You will, take losses throughout the season. I'm hoping that's all that was just kind of an anomaly. And, hey, they're going to come out better on Saturday and in series moving forward. But it was a tough one to watch.
I mean, I think the toughest thing, and it kind of brings you back to reality, right, is that that's the type of caliber teams that you're going to have to be going through in order to win the Stanley Cup. So it might be, as great as it is, and it's still exciting, and the Wild are still playing well. I mean, you still have to be realistic, possibly, that there might be a couple pieces away from truly being that team, right? I mean, and that's okay. Like they're still making it great, entertaining hockey, and if they prove us wrong,
expectations.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
All of the above. I mean, it's still exciting. I mean, we're now kind of at the halfway point, Alexis, and I know we're going to have a hockey happy hour to discuss with all of our lovely fan base coming up. So stay tuned to our social media channels for when you can check that out on our YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. That's also a plug there, which now has Russian subtitles for all of our Russian friends who want to find out about
Shout out to Fred for putting that together.
Yes, thank you, Fred.
I can't confirm that they're good Russian subtitles.
Yeah.
Because I don't speak Russian, but there's something there. Yeah, there's something there.
Exactly. No, so stay tuned. Be sure to check that out so we can go. Also, you can win a $50 SotaStick gift card if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So all those incentives to come look at
so many things to do.
These faces, guys. These beautiful faces. But no, I mean, where do you think the Wild do stack up? I mean, they're certainly, again, getting the recognition. They're doing a lot of things right. They're doing a lot of things not right. Power play. But, still, it's a constant thing. But I mean, where do you think they kind of rank now halfway through?
Yeah, this is a weird spot to talk about it in the sense that, that game against the Avalanche on Thursday, like I said, was one of the first games I really saw them in the season where I was like, oh, they don't look like a good team tonight. They're really getting outplayed. They're a step behind them. They're not getting opportunities. And that game could have easily been, 9-0, like the Rangers against the Flyers the other night. So the Wild, I think, escaped by only losing 5-1. So yeah, it's a weird spot because I want to see how they play on Saturday against the Avalanche. And I want to see, a couple. They've got, I think, one more series against the Avalanche. They still haven't played St. Louis yet. So there's still some teams and some moments throughout the season that I want to see how they get out of that game. But I will say this, they have consistently exceeded expectations, I think, for long enough now to where I can say they're a better team than I think a lot of people thought they were going to be. Are they a team who's going to win a Stanley Cup yet? Probably not. They still seem a few steps away from that. Could they win a playoff series, though? I think I'm at the point where I think they could maybe, win a round in the playoffs and maybe advance to the second round, or at least make the first round competitive, which I know is a weird thing to even be excited about, but sometimes the Wild just don't play well in the playoffs. So they're in a much better spot in my head than I kind of pictured at the beginning of the season. And I just really want to see how they do here a little bit more down the stretch, especially with how crazy their schedule is and how compact these games are. They've got a lot of good things going for them, and I just want to see how they handle the next couple weeks or so.
Right, exactly. I mean, you kind of summed it up there perfectly. They're exceeding these expectations, mine included, right? I'm a cynical one. I don't really put much faith in them just because I've seen this team, and they certainly have really done it. I'm excited for our final segment 3, to talk about what possibly could be some of the main reasons. Obviously, everything collectively works together, but there are 3 very major reasons that this team is doing well: goaltending, Dean Evason, and Kirill Kaprizov. So stick around for our last segment in order to hear our debate on that. But the thing is, the schedule just gets tougher, right?
Yeah,
again, we talked about this last week too. You're done with LA. You're pretty much done with Anaheim. You have yet to see St. Louis at all, which is Jordan Binnington.
They're going to be pretty competitive.
Put that smug smile away, St. Louis Blues fan, Fred.
I didn't say a thing.
You thought it. I think it's, between that, the major difference to me in this team this year, though, is not just the winning, it's the way they're winning. Yep. I think a lot of times in the past when the Wild did well, and I forget who I was talking about this with, I want to say it might've been like Pat Micheletti, actually. Shout out Mick. And we were saying how usually when they were doing well, it's because of puck luck or some bounces. I mean, it truly wasn't necessarily the skill that was shining. And now it is. I mean, they're finally throwing the pucks on net. They're finally going, getting in on the rushes. I mean, again, with the exception of the game against Colorado where the rushes were absolutely atrocious.
All against them,
Yes. I think they're doing a lot of those things that, again, I laugh because it's what a normal NHL team would be doing. It's just we haven't been graced with that in Minnesota for so long. So I really love kind of just the way they're winning. And again, it's those 4 lines that are contributing. Unfortunately, Marcus Foligno still remains out. There is still no timeline for a return for him based on that ankle injury, or as we assume, the ankle injury. We'll hopefully get some more updates on that, but otherwise everyone else is healthy. Matt Dumba, hopefully back soon. Dean Evason had spoke today and said it's not as bad as it looked, and he had crashed hard into the walls in the Colorado series, favoring that right ankle there. No pressure, no weight put on it as he got off the ice, which means he's been getting really freaking lucky with these injuries, because the last injury he had looked just as bad. And I wonder if that's part of him mentally just getting so nervous right away because of his one injury that kept him out for the year. And maybe he's just mentally getting ahead of himself, like, oh shit, this is bad, or I don't know.
When they showed the replay, I mean, it looked bad right away. And then they showed the replay, and the replay they showed, they had a closer look of his face. And I said out loud, I was like, you can tell by the look on his face, he is very uncomfortable. Like he knows that what just happened is not good. And, we had talked as well before we started recording that he wasn't putting any pressure on the foot coming off the ice, which is also never a good sign. And post game, Dean was like, you guys all saw that. It didn't look good. And so good news today, a little bit of good news that maybe it's not as bad as we think. But obviously he's a very important part of this Minnesota Wild team. And the Wild have been pretty lucky outside of their bout with COVID that they haven't dealt with any massive injuries this season, which has really derailed them in seasons prior, where not only would it be an injury or two, but they would all happen at the same inopportune time, where it was like our top, 3 of our top 6 forwards were all injured, and we had a goalie who's out and a defenseman who's out, and a lot of, injury issues in the playoffs. And so the Wild have been
put
pretty lucky
Kaprizov
so
in a
far.
bubble. Just
put him in a bubble. Seriously, protect him at all costs. So yeah, hopefully Matt is okay, and hopefully he's back sooner than maybe what we expected after seeing the injury last night, because he's very important to this team.
If he's not, my final segue, you guys ready for it? If he's not Calen Addison down in Iowa, a potential to get a look. We actually asked Dean Evason about that today. He said, of course, opportunity would be there. Again, he's hopeful that Matt Dumba returns much quicker. They still have Carson Soucy and Brad Hunt to kind of rotate in there. Carson Soucy back from his 1-game suspension. But Calen Addison, a very viable player to get a call up. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll catch up with Calen. Stay tuned.
We want you to help us design the next line of Bardown Beauties Teespring merchandise. What pod-related bit should we toss on some gear? Stay tuned to our social channels, and in the meantime, continue to shop current lines at Teespring under Bardown Beauties.
Joining us now, a player that Minnesota Wild fans are very excited to see up with the big boys more permanently, Mr. Calen Addison. Calen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. How are things? I know we got to see glimpses of you with the Minnesota Wild a little bit. You're down in Iowa right now. How was your time up here in Minnesota, and how's it going down in Iowa?
It was awesome. I learned a lot up there in the short amount of time that I was up there. It's nice to be back here. We got a really good group here, good coaching staff, good team. I learn a lot on a weekly basis, on and off the ice. I think it's been awesome here, and obviously it was a dream come true to play in Minnesota and to get my first few games there. So that was awesome.
Did you get a haircut since then?
Yeah.
Were you surprised at the amount of attention your hair and mustache were getting up here? I mean, do you think people just need something to talk about and love kind of a personality?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk going on about it for sure. I didn't really, but yeah, it just kind of happened, and I haven't heard too much since I cut it. So I'm not sure grow it out again or cut it like this all the time.
I vote grow it out. I love the look. I thought it was awesome. I feel like a lot of the Minnesota Wild players have a little bit extra salad this year. I think everyone's kind of letting it flow. I'd say rock it. Either way, though, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, lots of guys have a lot of hair.
What would you say it's like, as one of the guys who've now had to move between the Minnesota Wild and the Iowa Wild? What is that experience like as being in the AHL and being one of those guys that kind of has to bounce between? What does that make your life like?
It's very different. Going back and forth and, traveling all over and playing on 2 different teams in 2 leagues that are very different in style. It's different, but you just got to kind of adjust. And, I mean, they're just so different, the 2 leagues in so many different ways that you can't really explain. You just need to be out there to know what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, I just kind of finding that balance and, knowing kind of how to play each night, depending on what team you're on and who you're playing and stuff like that.
You had mentioned you learned quite a bit. I mean, obviously you've got Ryan Suter, Jared Spurgeon here, Jonas Berdine. Anybody in particular that you recall kind of taking you under their wing and showing you a little bit for you to take that down to Iowa with you?
Well, Dumba, Brodeen, Suter, Spurgeon, guys like that are, constantly just helping you out with the little things. Any question I had about on the ice in, any circumstance, they would have the answer, whether it was just something simple or, less is more in some circumstances. Those guys have the answers for you. They've played for a long time. So just being able to ask questions to those guys and learn from them is definitely helpful.
Did you find that was something that you had to remind yourself, especially in your NHL debut, that, sure, you want to go out there and impress everybody, right, and do your best, but did you have to kind of remind yourself that, hey, just stick to your game. You don't have to do those extra things necessarily just to stand out?
That's exactly it. Dean Evason told me before my first game, just be yourself. You don't need to be Jared Spurgeon out there. And that's exactly it. I mean, in a way, less is more in some circumstances. And, being a younger guy playing in your first few games, you want to keep it simple. You want to play your game when you have the puck and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, you want to keep it simple and, just make the right play, make a good first pass, and, be offensive when you need to be, but just work hard defensively and keep it simple.
How hard is it to be, someone who's coming up to play with the Minnesota Wild, knowing I'm not going to be here probably all season, who knows how many games I might be here for, but you want to make an impression while you're there, and you've only got sometimes a short amount of time to do it. What is your mindset going into that, knowing, you want to mesh with the guys well, and you want to make an impression, but don't necessarily have a whole season to do that?
I think you just kind of take it like any other day. I mean, like you said, I know I'm not going to be there all year this year and stuff like that. But, I know all those guys well enough now where, it feels just as equal. Like when I'm up or when I'm down here, it feels like I'm just on a team like normal. And, I'm close with the guys. The guys are awesome here and up there. And, like I said, just learning from those guys. You just gotta take it all in and not take anything for granted when you're up there learning from those guys and the coaches and everyone around you. Every day it's crazy. So yeah, I think just taking it all in and not taking anything for granted. And when your chance comes to stay there, it'll come.
What was your impression of Kirill Kaprizov on the other end of the ice? What was kind of your first reaction to seeing a player like him and of his dynamic in person there?
Yeah, I saw him. I skated with him for a number of weeks during camp, and now like that 2 weeks I was up, and he's obviously a really good guy and extremely good player. I mean, some of the things he does out there is crazy, and I don't know, maybe ask somebody else, but he's near impossible to take the puck away from. His puck protection and playmaking is crazy. So those are the things that stand out to me.
Alex Goligoski had said last night that Kaprizov is a player that would rather go one-on-one with you than really do a whole lot. I mean, did you find that to be true even in practices or the little bit that you saw him?
Seems like that. Yeah, he likes to go one-on-one and create a battle and just flat out beat you to the net. And, to someone else, or just straight up go one-on-one. He's got really good puck protection and playmaking, and those are the things that stand out to me. He can beat anyone, really.
Right. Is his English better than he lets on? We've heard Ryan Suter say maybe he knows a little bit more English. Is it better than we think?
Not sure. Maybe. Yeah, but it's not too bad.
Yeah. Obviously there was all this hype around Kaprizov, but you're another player that, again, Minnesota Wild fans are very, very excited to see. Have you heard any or felt any of that pressure or heard any of that chatter about how excited folks are to see you in a Minnesota Wild uniform full-time coming up here at some point?
I guess you kind of read stuff and hear stuff. Just kind of happens over time, but I'm not too into seeing what people say and reading stuff. I'm not into that, but I like to just play my game and have fun out there. I mean, there's been lots of situations before where there's been a lot of pressure, whether it's World Juniors or whatever. You just got to play like it's any other game, and you can't overthink it. It's just hockey at the end of the day.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned World Juniors. What was it like winning gold that year that you were there with Team Canada?
Yeah, that was. I'd put that even with playing my first NHL game. That was crazy. The feeling after that one, I'll never really be able to even remember it or explain it. I mean, just kind of blacked out when it happened. You had a really good team and a really good group of guys. So that was one of the best times of my life for sure.
Where's the gold medal? What do you have it somewhere special?
It's at home hanging up. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it in like a shadow box with my jersey and stuff.
Nice. You mentioned that there's so many differences between the AHL and the NHL and kind of how you have to adjust when you go back and forth. What would you say is the biggest thing that you can take from your time in the AHL when you do get that time up in the NHL? What skills are you most tuning into that you use on a daily basis in the AHL?
It's just like defensive things. I think at the end of the day, no matter where you are, your offense and your puck skills and your playmaking abilities will always come. they'll always be there with you. But one thing for me is just working on my defensive game all over the ice, just making sure I'm in the right position, having my feet moving at all times, and defending with my feet in a good stick. So kind of just that, just fine tuning my game and just becoming a better player overall.
Yeah, I mean, what can fans expect from you when you do make that jump up? I mean, obviously Minnesota Wild has been known to have this very staunch defense, right, for years and years. I mean, what's something that you think your game really brings that can help improve the Minnesota Wild when that time comes?
I'm an offensive defenseman.
I love that. First of all, let me just say, round of applause. We need more of those with the Minnesota Wild, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to make a good first pass or skate myself out of trouble. Just make a good breakout or skate it out if you need to. And then, in the neutral zone and the O zone, everything kind of just comes naturally. I like to just have the puck on my stick or make guys around me, make it easier for guys around me by, finding them in open areas and stuff like that. So I think I'm just an offensive defenseman who, likes to jump up in the play, likes to be around in all situations and also really work hard defensively.
Who would you compare a current NHLer? Who would you compare your game most similar to then, do you think?
I was always told Jared Spurgeon or Tyson Barrie. So
nice.
Now that I know Spurgeon, I think it's pretty cool. And I mean, we're pretty similar size, stature, and I'd say we're pretty similar play style. So, I mean, it's pretty cool knowing him and, getting to learn from him every day when I'm up there. He's one of the best guys I've met. So, anytime a guy like that who you compare yourself to is, you get to learn from him every day, especially a guy like that. It's awesome. And, you learn so much.
Right. Are you doing anything with special teams in Iowa? Could you help the Minnesota Wild power play, the one kind of knock against them currently as it is, as they seem to struggle? Do you see, is there any way that you could help us, Calen?
I'd like to say that's my specialty, would be playing on the power play. And, just any offensive situation with the puck is one of my biggest strengths. And, the time will come and, I'm just trying to work hard and do whatever I got to do to get there when the time comes and then see what happens. But yeah, I'm just willing to do anything really to, become a better player.
We've talked about some comparisons to current NHLers, but when you were growing up, was there an NHLer you really looked up to, especially as an offensive defenseman? Was there an offensive player you wanted to play like, or were you looking more to that defensive style that you really admired as a kid?
I loved Erik Karlsson. He was always my favorite player growing up. So I also like Drew Doughty a lot too, but I don't know. I just think Karlsson was so special to watch. Some of the stuff he does out there is special. So he was my favorite player.
See, then you have to grow your hair back out because both of those guys are rocking the long locks, right? You got to do it. You got to give that homage to them.
You got to lose a few teeth too to look like Drew Doughty if you want to work on that as well.
Exactly. And kind of, yeah. Final question I have for you then. What is something that nobody maybe really knows about you that you could share? Do you have any special talents, any favorite foods, or any weird little quirks that Minnesota Wild fans can get to know a little bit better with?
Nothing special, I don't think. Anyways, nothing really too crazy. I mean, when I was 2, I moved from Brandon up north to Thompson till I was 7, and then I moved back to Brandon when I was 7, and I've been there ever since. I don't think there's not anything really special about me or anything crazy.
Are we gonna have to pick on some of your teammates to find out exactly what it might be? Then is that what you're saying?
Maybe. I don't know if I have the answer for that one. Somebody else might.
How about superstitions? Do you have any pregame rituals that need to happen all the time? Are you a guy that can't change his socks if you're on a winning streak or a point streak, anything like that?
Nothing too crazy. Maybe just like I always have to nap. I love napping. I always kind of, try to do the same, like warm up and stretches before games. And, if there's something I did and I had a really good day or a really good game, I'll probably keep that or whatever, but nothing too crazy. It's just kind of little small mental things, maybe just to get me going for the game, I guess.
What about tape job? That's always a big one, right? How's your tape job go? What do you do? What's the
Yeah, I
right
was
to left?
tape job. I just go like toe to heel, black tape, and kind of up the shaft like a sock tape job. I don't know. Just always do it.
I like it. How about music? What's your favorite music? What do you have to listen to at a time? Did you approve of Matt Dumba's music selections? I know he's the team DJ as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty good buddies with him, and I like his music. He's got a good taste in music, but I'm full out country guy.
Oh,
nice.
In Manitoba, yeah, I love country, but I listen to hip hop, rap, and like folk, like acoustic, relaxing stuff like that. But it's pretty much all country for the most part.
Taylor Swift? We a Taylor Swift fan? T Swift?
No.
You're going with the dudes probably more often than not.
Yeah.
I love it. And I guess one more final question then. How's the Iowa Wild looking? How are you guys doing in the AHL this season so far? I know again it's weird for you guys as it is in the NHL, but how's the team looking?
We're good. Like I said, we got some really good players. We got a really good group of guys and staff. I love it here. I love the city. I know our record doesn't, necessarily show that we've been very good this year, but it's not always about the record. If your team's playing well, it'll come. I mean, we're 1-6-1 in our last 8, but there's teams that have that happen all the time, and you just got to dig yourself out of that slump, and positive things will come of it.
Does the taxi squad hinder that then, do you think, obviously, because you're missing some guys that would probably be down there to help you out who are playing on the taxi squad and kind of just getting that practice time with the Wild? Is that affecting teams a little bit more this year, you think?
For sure. Definitely is. I mean, the depth of some of those older guys on the taxi squads that they give teams would obviously help a ton. We've got Belpedio, we've got Barkowski, we've got Mayhew right now. So, that obviously completely, changes things. Those guys are huge when they're out there. So yeah, it just kind of, I guess you don't say depletes your roster, but it definitely affects it when guys like that aren't down here playing.
Right. Well, best of luck the rest of the season. We look forward to any future recalls up. And again, you're full-time with the Minnesota Wild. Thank you so much, Calen, for joining us. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break.
Hey guys, this is producer Fred. I just want to ask everyone to go out there and spread the word about Bardown Beauties. Leave us a like, share, thumbs up, review, you name it, we want to hear from you. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, your favorite podcast app.
We're back. Thanks again to Mr. Calen Addison for taking time to join us on the team's day off. Best of luck to the Iowa Wild the rest of the season. Certainly always fun to catch up with him. I'm so excited for him. It's funny. I think coming into training camp, everybody wanted to know about Calen Addison. I mean, they wanted to know about this guy named Kirill Kaprizov too.
Yeah,
but quite a few people in my mentions were like, how's Calen Addison look? And for me, I didn't know anything about him, but I see a bright future for him for sure.
Yeah, especially after seeing the little bit of time he got with the Wild so far, and depending on, if he gets any more time here, depending on how long Matt Dumba is going to be out. I was excited about him coming out of training camp just because of the hype that kind of started mounting over him. And then seeing him play a little bit, I'm like, I really like what he's doing. He played a really sound game, and that could be tough to get thrown up there and try to be impressive and stand out so quickly. And I thought he did that. And so I think he's got a bright future ahead of him with the Minnesota Wild, and I'm excited to see him more long-term on the team.
Exactly. Hopefully he keeps tearing it up down in Iowa. In the meantime, let's get back to the Wild here in St. Paul. We had a fantastic, and I'm just going to say it was fantastic up for debate. I'm going to call it game breaker, right? What is the true game breaker?
Is it Kevin Fiala?
I know it's probably Kevin Fiala for the Minnesota Wild. I mean, obviously, again, there are so many things that are contributing to the success, so many players that are contributing to the success. But Alexis, you narrowed it down to 3 very large, unignorable items, players, people. Why don't you list them off for us?
So we got Dean Evason, or just overall coaching. We've got Kirill Kaprizov, obviously, is a gimme there. And then lastly, I included goaltending. And I kind of put this same question in a poll form on my personal Twitter. And I liked the conversation that was kind of going on in my mentions. And I thought, let's bring this to Bardown Beauties and kind of switch up the choices here. And that's the three that I went with because it seems like over the course of the season, that is what has stood out the most to me. And obviously there's other things, that you could have mentioned there. And a lot of people were saying all three, but those were the three that I went with. And it seems even unfair to ask people to point their finger to just one of them because they are all so important throughout the course of the season. But that's what we did.
And they're
we asked
all
you guys
so
to
great.
pick one. Yeah.
Right? Like that's the toughest thing. Like it's hard and they work together, right? Like at the end of the day, Dean Evason is leading the charge for these players, but Kirill Kaprizov is bringing this new element. And then they're also getting great goaltending. Like,
yes.
I don't know. How do you pick? What did you pick? We have to pick. What did you pick?
I picked Kaprizov, and it is such a gimme answer. And I was really torn between Kaprizov and goaltending. But I went with Kaprizov just because I've said this on, radio hits that I've done and podcasts that I've gone on and just in everyday conversation with people. But every time he steps onto the ice, he makes everybody else around him better. And he makes everyone else around him step up one or two steps from where they were before. And I said this just on a podcast this week. I said, Kirill Kaprizov knows what everyone around him is going to do before everyone around him knows what they're going to do. And he's just one step ahead of everybody. And because of that, he makes everyone around him play better. And not to say that other players aren't good or can't perform well on their own, but he just brings out the best in his teammates and in his line mates. And for that reason, I think that the Minnesota Wild have been able to do so much more because think about some of the things that have really stood out on this Wild team this year. Speed, which Kirill Kaprizov provides. Making plays off the rush, which the Wild have never been a team who've been able to do that. So those two things, themselves have really, made the Wild look like a better team. And I pinpoint that back to Kirill Kaprizov. So that's who I went with. But you could really make a case for any three. Which one did you go with, Jesse?
I mean, and I will make a case for any of the three. No, I mean, Kaprizov, I want to address that first because without question, like he has injected life into this team a little bit and just kind of even in the room and in the culture, right? I think that's a big difference of the way this team is performing and why they're finding success. And we've asked Dean Evason too, very blatantly, like how much has Kaprizov helped these guys? I mean, again, Matt Zuccarello, Victor Rask, you guys, nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw those games. Victor Rask is out there dangling guys the other night.
Power play goals. We need them. Come on, give me more of that.
It's tremendous. And not to say that those guys, it always says you put the lines together and that's why lines can be important, right? But Kirill is just doing something that I think is filtering off to all these other guys. Yep. No, I mean, I look at the culture in the Minnesota Wild locker room this year, and obviously I'm not in there. None of us are, right? But you can just sense that things are different. You talking to the guys post-game, practices, there's a different vibe about every single one of these players, which makes me believe that the locker room presence is very different. And I think Dean has a lot to do with that, right? Mm-hmm. I think he kind of came in and said, this is the way things are going to be. I think Bill Guerin also had a lot to do with it too. So in addition to coaching, I'm going to give Guerin some credit as well.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that in our mentions. They were like, what about Bill Guerin? I'm like, that's fair. You could lump that in there as well and make a point for that. So
can I ask a question though?
Yeah.
And I hate saying this, and I've kind of had it in the back of my head for a while.
Oh God.
If you're Mikko Koivu, do you look around and go, was it me?
Oh,
is it me?
Sad. No,
I mean,
you
seriously
can't do
that.
Though.
I'm just saying.
Come on,
people complained about the captaincy for a long time.
I think this team
and
is so
the captaincy
different.
changes, the leadership changes a little bit, and all of a sudden.
But I think Mikko never had a young team like this.
Yeah,
I think that's the
it's
biggest
a fair
difference.
question. But
I'm not saying it's Mikko's fault. I'm just saying if you are Mikko, and you're sitting at home.
Mikko's listening right now and just giving you the finish there. Oh, he's
Not.
listening.
I just want to say as well, we don't normally really debate in these debate segments because we typically agree with each other. But just to play devil's advocate to your coaching point, the reason that I kind of leaned away from the coaching one was because the makeup of the team is so different. Like this roster looks very different this year than it did in previous years. And so that leads me to wonder, like, okay, how much can you really attribute to the coaching? Is it maybe just the roster has a new look and it's the players doing this? Not to say Dean has his hands completely out of it. Obviously, he's had an impact in this. But that was why I was like, I don't know if I can pick that one as the leading factor because to me there was other things.
Right.
But I love that, as someone like you, Jesse, who was very unsure about whether Dean was ready for this or not, I love what he has been able to do with this team and just be able to help them get these wins, and the way that he's rolled the lines and made these big calls where he's like, you're getting sat, I'm rolling the lines here, F the power play unit, we don't have one. Like, he's making these big decisions. Now the goaltending thing where it's like, who do we go with the goaltender? He's just going to make whatever decision he wants. He doesn't feel obligated to start any one player over the other. So I will say in that respect that he has made a big difference. But yeah, you could say Bill Guerin is a reason why. You could say that captaincy change is a reason why. I mean, you could list a lot of different things for the Wild success, which, as we've said before, is a fantastic problem to have, that we cannot pinpoint what thing is going so well that it's the leading factor.
And it never should be one thing. Like, I'm grateful that it's not just Kaprizov, right? Because you don't want that flash in the pan of one player, like a poor Connor McDavid situation in Edmonton, right?
Jack Eichel.
Yes, exactly. Like, you don't
Buffalo Sabres,
want just the one guy that you're counting on every night. I mean, again, Kaprizov is a guy to talk about because he's doing everything right for everyone else too, right? It's not just that he's going down doing these highlight reel goals. It's passing, it's getting his line mates going. It's kind of all of it.
And if that one player or one aspect isn't clicking that night, then the team doesn't doing well. That's why you need everything to be, or at least a handful of things to be working for you, because Kirill Kaprizov is going to have off games. Our netminders are going to have off games. Our captain, Jared Spurgeon, is going to have off games, right? Where you need other guys to step up and say, don't worry, it's not your night. I got you tonight. And so, you don't want to have just one thing.
Hopefully
it's awesome.
They step up. Again, I point to the Colorado game.
Yes.
But I will say your goaltending was on. And that's where I do want to give a stick tap, obviously, to the goaltending, because Cam Talbot, and Kaapo Kahkonen, I don't think people saw as being split number ones, right? Maybe you saw them as split number twos, like Stalock and Dubnyk were. And again, we love those guys. They're great humans, because I know they've both been on our podcast. So, what's up, guys? We love you
guys.
But, I mean, seriously, Talbot and Kahkonen are both number ones right now. And that's where it's a great, tough decision that Dean has to make every single night. I know Kaapo's getting the start against Colorado on Saturday. And I think you're going to see so much more of that. I think he's going to split time, because you don't want one sitting out too long. When they're both playing so well, you can't freeze one up. So it's all good. We love them all. Let us know what you think in case you didn't weigh in. I know a lot of people, a lot of good different conversations. We love it. So certainly shoot us a note if you have other good up for debate topics. We got some good ones coming at you. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Again, shout out to presenting sponsor, SotaStick.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, not only for phenomenal content like Hughes with the Beauties, like Hockey Happy Hour, like all these little one-off clips, but also for a chance to win a $50 SotaStick gift card. We will select that winner at the end of the month. So thanks to SotaStick for hooking us up with that. Thank you to SotaStick for also hooking up one of our listeners with a customized Bardown Beauties
that was cool
jersey. That winner had to be selected because how freaking adorable was that with his daughter and the Doma jersey? And that was just, it's a winner. It's a winner. So, but thank you for everybody who played along with that. Props to Talk North for featuring us on their lovely network. We couldn't do without them. And thank you to BettorEdge.com for also providing a platform for sports, competition, and social, giving back to the bettors in a new way. So look for Alexis and I's bets going live on there. We appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you. Rate, subscribe, give us some love, and we'll be back next week with more great content. Have a good one.